Last week, I did a video on Premiere keyboard shortcuts that could absolutely change your life. And if you missed it, you can check it out right here. And while creating that video, I was thinking about a few kind of obscure techniques that I use really often inside Premiere that just make life a little easier. So let's jump back in and check out some Premiere Pro hacks that you might not know about. Number 1. Rulers and guides. If you jump into your program monitor and you hit this plus button editor, you will find rulers and guides hidden away. These are really handy if you need to line up a title or you want to snap a graphic, and having them applied in this panel means you can really easily toggle them on and off when you want to get the space back in the monitor. Number 2, editing labels. If you're like me, you like to really utilize color labels. So at a glance, you know exactly what everything is. A really cool hack that used to be hidden up in the general project settings is actually now down in the timeline display settings, and it's this show source clip name and label. While this is disabled, if I wanted to change the label of my main piece to camera clip, which is this one, I would right click, go down to label, try and change it to rows, and nothing happens. If I go and enable show source clip name and label, now every instance that this clip is on the timeline, it will show up as the color rows. If I wanted to change my B-roll clips, I can click, highlight them all, right click, label, and I'm going to make them mango. And you'll see they've all changed from rose to mango. And I find it's just a really handy way of keeping track of where all your footage is at. Number 3, source color grading. Let's say you're at the end of your edit, you're ready to do a color grade, but much like this project I have here, I have cut this clip into about 1 million pieces. I could color grade the first one and then right click, copy, paste attributes, but there is a much easier way to do this. If I go across and bring up my Lumetri colors, instead of color grading the main clip, I'm going to click over and color grade the source clip. Now, if I color grade this clip, bring the blues right down, and I click back into the timeline, every instance of that clip is going to be affected. Once you've clicked into the timeline, you have to make sure you switch back into the source to continue editing. And for YouTube videos specifically, where I'm not going to go to the trouble of adding adjustment layers to grade all of my clips, this is a really great option just to easily apply a quick color grade. Number 4, green bar on the entire sequence. Some time ago, there was an update where the Enter key no longer rendered the entire Premiere sequence. Instead, it only rendered effects into out. So you'd press Enter, and it wouldn't render anything because there were no effects to render. But most of my timeline wouldn't play back smoothly because most of it was still yellow. And I'll be honest, that was one of the updates that really did not sit right with me, so I went about and changed it. There are a couple of different options for this, but the process that I went through to return it to the way it was is click on this little burger icon here and enable work area bar. Then I'm going to go up to our old friend, the keyboard shortcuts, and click on return. We're going to delete render effects into out and instead search for render into out. Drag and drop that on the return key. Now, when we press enter, it's going to render the entire timeline. Number 5, interpret footage. Let's look at a scenario where you have your normal footage in 25 frames per second and you have your B-roll in 50 frames per second. On the timeline, because it's laid out in 25, we use our 50 frame B-roll and we can slow it down. We could go through the process of right-clicking, speed duration, 50, and do it that way. But there is a much simpler way to do this. Instead, you can go over to your B-roll clips, select all the ones that are 50 frames, right-click, modify, interpret footage, assume this frame rate, 25 FPS. Now, without having to do anything, you can pop your clips on the timeline, and they're going to play in slow motion. Number 6, customizing audio fades. Finally, one of my favorite changes that just really enhances my quick cutting workflow is customizing the length and the shortcuts for my audio fades. So if you were to select Command D, you would get a crossfade on the video and a crossfade on the audio. Personally, I don't use crossfades between videos all that much, but I do use crossfades on the audios all the time. In instances like this, I'm just gonna chuck a crossfade to take the breaths out between these two clips, but then I'd have to go through and delete all the video crossfades. And I thought, there's just gotta be a better way to do this. So once again, I visited the keyboard shortcuts, went to the D key, deleted Apply Default Transitions, and instead searched for Apply Video and Apply Audio. I used Shift D to apply audio transitions and Command D to apply just video transitions. And if I really want to, I can still use Shift Command D to apply both. And I went okay. Now, when I'm cutting through my video, I can just go through, bring the clip back, Shift D, and it only applies my audio transition. The last thing I did with this is adjust the default length of the audio transition, because by default it goes for a very long time. So you can go up into Preferences, Timeline, and change the length of your video transition default and your audio transition default to whatever you'd like it to be. So there we go, some maybe not so usual Premiere Pro hacks, but all of these things really help me get my videos done so much faster, and I hope that they help you get your videos done faster too. If you'd like to see more, keep watching these videos and leave a comment below with what you'd like to see a video about next. Make sure you hit subscribe for more video tips and techniques, and I'll see you next time.